I want to start by expressing my deepest condolences to the family of Monique Bao. For victims and their families, our system is often excruciatingly slow. For Monique's family, this was especially true, as they have now had to sit through 4 trials and the emotional pain of an overturned conviction. Sometimes verdicts can help bring people closure, but for Monique's family, that may ring false because they have been here before. To Monique's family, I hope today brings you some measure of peace and in some way contributes to your healing process. I promise you that we will continue fighting for your daughter and your daughter's memory, just as we did during this trial. Most people in Hennepin County remember that in 2019, on New Year's Eve, 2 men kidnapped and murdered Monique Bao, a real estate agent who was just 28 years old. She had 2 small children, ages 1 and 3. The murder was premeditated, designed to get back at John Mitchell Momo, the father of her children, because Lyndon Wiggins was in a dispute with him over a record contract. The investigation showed that Wiggins, the mastermind behind this plot, hired 2 men to kidnap Monique to find Mr. Mitchell Momo. Former Hennepin County probation officer Elsa Segura, who is romantically involved with Wiggins, set up a fake real estate showing to lure Monique Bao to a location where she was kidnapped. The kidnappers threw her in a U-Haul, bound her wrists with duct tape, and interrogated her for hours. They shot her 3 times and dumped her body in an alley. They eventually found and shot Mr. Mitchell Momo 3 times, but he survived. The 2 shooters were tried together and convicted. Mr. Wiggins and Ms. Segura were also tried and convicted in separate trials. All were sentenced to life in prison. In March of 2024, however, the Minnesota Supreme Court overturned the verdict in Wiggins and Segura's cases after ruling that the judge had given a faulty jury instruction. Those who are convicted, including Mr. Wiggins, have a right to appeal. At the same time, I cannot imagine how the Bao family felt upon hearing the Wiggins and Segura convictions were overturned. Last year, Ms. Segura, when her case came back, pleaded guilty to kidnapping resulting in great bodily harm. She will serve 2 decades in prison. Today, the jury found Mr. Wiggins guilty on all 4 counts: aiding and abetting first-degree murder, premeditation, aiding and abetting attempted first-degree murder, aiding and abetting kidnapping, great bodily harm, aiding and abetting first-degree murder while committing a felony. Mr. Wiggins will receive a sentence of life without parole so that he is not able to hurt anyone else. I hope that this, the 4th trial in this case, is the last one Monique Bao's family has to endure. I want to thank our team that prepared this case for over a year and has been in a grueling trial for over a month. Particularly Paige Starkey, right behind me here, has had this case for almost 6 years. She has been the person who's been with this case from the beginning. She has tried it 4 times. Her co-counsel is Chris Filipski next to her. We also had a paralegal, case manager, victim witness, people who helped, as well as law clerks who listened to all of the jail calls. I also want to thank the jurors who sat through a very difficult trial, carefully evaluated the evidence, and came to this verdict. I know you too will carry the memories with you for some time, and for that, I am sorry. But I want to end again with giving my condolences to the Bao family. The last 6 years have been a terrible ordeal for you. Anything our office can do to continue to support you, please know that we are here. Thank you. Questions?
So the Minnesota Supreme Court sent this back over jury instruction.
Yes.
Are you and your team confident that that issue and any other potential appeal issues were buttoned up this time around?
I'm going to let Ms. Starkey answer that.
As confident as we can be. Yeah. I'd be very surprised if it came back on jury instructions again, but defendants have a right to appeal, and they always find things to argue. So we'll just have to see.
And for you personally, how does it feel like to get to this day after all the different trials that you've had to go through?
I was assigned to this case on January 4th of 2020, just about a day before the first defendant was charged. And all I can really say is that it's been my honor to tell the story, to seek justice for Monique. I thank the Williams-Bow family for trusting me with that. It really has been the honor of my professional life to have a chance to prosecute this case as many times as it takes.
Any other questions?
Is there anything different about the way you prosecuted this trial versus the first go around?
That's probably me too. So I would say a couple of main distinctions. Chris and I, and before I say that, I should have said earlier, Chris Filipski, I wouldn't still be standing today if it weren't for him being willing to come on this case over a year ago, join a case that he was not originally a part of, read, I don't know, millions of transcripts, take, at least half the burden, at least half the emotional tax. This is an attorney that I specifically asked for, and he showed every single day why. I was talking as we were waiting, as this trial was wrapping up and we were waiting for the verdict, we talked about what a different case we put on. I would say a couple of the main differences are that the court did compel Elsa Segura to testify, which this was always going to be a primarily circumstantial case, because when someone orchestrates a murder for hire, it's their goal to stay separated from it. It's their goal to have an alibi when it occurs. Their fingerprints and their DNA aren't going to be on it. So it was always going to have a fair bit of circumstantial evidence. The difference this time, I think, was offering that direct evidence through Elsa Segura's testimony of his involvement. She did not want to testify, and I can understand why, for a variety of reasons. And when the court compelled her to do so, she did. And I think that makes a difference. The other big difference I would note is that Lyndon Wiggins himself testified. And that did not occur in the first trial either.
Other questions?
During the testimony, there's a lot of references to drug trafficking and a lot of work. Did any other cases or convictions come out of this investigation with any other individuals who've been charged as a result of working on this case?
So at the time that the murder occurred, there was an ongoing drug trafficking investigation at both the state and federal level into a number of these individuals. In fact, Cedric Berry and Barry Davis were under investigation by one task force, and Lyndon Wiggins and Elsa Segura were under investigation by another task force at the time of the murders. And those task forces had only very recently before the murder kind of realized that they may have some crossover in Lyndon Wiggins. Lyndon Wiggins was prosecuted and convicted federally for drug trafficking. And forgive me, I can't remember the total amount of time he's currently serving in federal prison. That's the only person that was prosecuted at both state and federal level, kind of at the same time. He went through the federal process and was convicted there before his first trial here. So that's been done for some time, and was serving that sentence when this was overturned.
Any concern with the defense team and anything that happened during the trial?
Everyone is entitled to a vigorous defense. We are glad that the right outcome is what happened at the end of the day, and that the jury saw the evidence for what it was.
Yeah, just any other pieces of evidence that you think were most important in getting this verdict? You talked about your testimony this time. Anything else you thought was most important?
Chris, do you?
Sure. I don't know if there's any other piece of evidence that was important. The strategy from the defense was different, and I think that's what Paige and I were a little bit surprised on. just because the obvious defense that they put forward the first time was that you don't have the evidence that my client did it. This time around, Mr. Wiggins testified, and one of the co-defendants, Barry Davis, testified. I thought it was surprising to put both of them on the stand, especially Barry Davis, given the fact, as Gord witnessed from when he was sitting and watching, that Mr. Davis admitted that he was lying under oath. I would venture a guess that that played into the way that the jury viewed the defense's case and the credibility of those witnesses. As Paige mentioned, Elsa testified. She didn't do that in the first case, but her testimony to me, and I think others that observed it, came across as being very credible. She acknowledged what her role was, and she said from the start, she didn't know the kidnapping was going to happen. She knew she did something wrong, and she made that phone call. So I think that evidence, as Paige just mentioned, was pretty telling at the end of the day.
Were you surprised then the verdict came as soon as it did today, or did you think it might take longer?
Paige was noting that this is approximately the same time that it took for the first verdict in the Wiggins 1, I would say. Certainly when you're the prosecutor sitting there, and we've been in this trial for a month, we were hoping that the verdict would have come on Friday. But the jury obviously reached the right verdict at the end of the day, and that's all that really matters for us.
How long were deliberations in total?
We got the notice of a verdict today at 2:29.
And they started at about 12:30 on Friday.
And did they deliberate over the weekend?
No.
They did not. They left a
And they
little
went
early.
home early on Friday.
Yeah.
So I think, hours wise, it was about even.
They asked to recess at 3:30 Friday.
And how many hours was that? Was it about 6 hours total or so? Or
6 or 7.
Yeah, about 6 or 7.
6 or 7 hours?
Yeah.
And some of that time probably has to do with selecting a jury foreperson.
They
Having
seemed to do
lunch.
that fairly quickly,
Did they quickly?
On Friday.
But hundreds of exhibits,
Yeah.
3 weeks of testimony.
Thank you.